Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Gareth Greppellini, and I'll be hosting this session on AI-driven lead to cash, all about unlocking revenue. We are in the middle of the World Forum series, and what better way than having a stellar crowd of speakers today to talk to you about this fabulous topic. So I'm going to allow them each to introduce themselves as they share their experience, how you can accelerate this in your business, and real practical advice to get going. How about AJ? You get us started with an intro.
Thank you, Gareth. Good morning, good evening to all of you. My name is Anandan Jayaraman, also go by AJ, based in the Bay Area. I lead the lead to cash portfolio for ServiceNow, and I've been here for 2 years. But over the last 25 years, I've spent a lot of time working with large enterprises on digital transformation, on code to cash. Excited to talk to you today about lead to cash and revenue assurance. I'll hand it off to Ross.
Hi, Ross Binkley. I am here with Gotransverse. We personally have been here for 9 years now, and Gotransverse is really focused on the billing side of the world. So we really handle and scale globally for high volume transactions with precision to handle usage and consumption-based billing and pricing, partnering with ServiceNow and the whole group. And we're really excited here to talk today. And I'm going to hand off to Paul.
Thanks, Gareth. Thanks for the intro. AJ Ross, a pleasure to be with you. I'm Paul Andrew. I'm one of the co-founders of the whole group. We've been a ServiceNow partner for a little over 2 years now. And prior to that, we've got amongst our teams nearly 30 years of digital transformation. A large part of that around the revenue journey. How do customers build revenue? How do they drive it? How do they invoice it? Ultimately, how do they settle it? And the reason we're in the ServiceNow ecosystem is we love the fact that with workflows, with AI, and with platforms like Gotransverse, the game has changed. It's getting easier, if I dare say that, to drive great revenue. So looking forward to today. Gareth?
Awesome. Thank you all, and Paul for closing us in there. So, guys, what are the questions to get straight in there that we hear from customers all the time? And let's give them that practical advice right at the start. Revenue assurance can mean many different things to many different people, and rightly so, because it's across the entirety of a customer journey. So what do you believe the most critical themes are or advice for executives with that who are mindful of it today? Let's start with AJ.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, Gareth. As you said, it can mean a lot of things depending on if you work in sales, IT, finance, or legal. At an elemental level, though, I think of it as the processes and systems that generate and manage quotes, orders, invoices, and payments, spanning the full commercial life cycle of a customer relationship, from net new to renewals and amendments. But when you look at revenue assurance circa 2025 in the age of AI, what does it mean? I would think of it in three contexts. One is what drives smarter decisions today is the quality of data, the fire hose that feeds the AI. So, trusted and reliable data for products, accounts, contracts, and transactions on all the systems running code to cash. This is the absolute foundation, and this has to be, enterprises have to get it right. The second thing is operational resilience. There was this idea that we would have systems that would go and inspect the mission critical applications and find leakage. And that idea is passé today. People want to do things, people want to find things as they happen. They want to prevent leakage even before it becomes a thing. So the question is, how do you solve for compressing time to market for new offers and plans? How can you deliver capabilities at high velocity? And how can you proactively manage leakage? And this needs you to have systems with high levels of operational agility. And the last thing, to state the obvious, is how do you embed AI into your transactional applications? And modern revenue assurance today is not about back office audit and compliance. It is about driving growth. It is about having an intentional and differentiated customer experience, while, of course, also solving for operational efficiency. So I would say having data you can trust, making your operations agile, and embedding intelligence into all parts of the stack. That's what revenue assurance means in 2025.
Awesome. Thank you so much, AJ. Ross, do you want to build on that? Your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. That the velocity, that exception to get to that resolution to really know what you're doing with the revenue capture to that rate. So as we, take in that daily, weekly ingestion of mediating data sources into a rate of information to get to the usage that's coming in, what we're doing with the data to actually get to a result. So what I mean by that is exactly what AJ was just talking about. Having enough information to know what's going on with your data and having clarity around the data to resolve to that ultimate revenue result that you're trying to get to. So, um, ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to have enough information, all of us, to resolve to an end result, and then have that clarity of that result to really report out to the end of what we're trying to get to. So mapping it all the way from point to point. And that's how you ultimately capture all of this information. So um, I think AJ hit it on the head, right? It's the velocity to get to the end question, to get to the end result. And I think, really billing to cash alignment and having that ultimate information in front of you is what we're doing. And that comes from mapping end to end, having clear data, having all that information right in front of you, and setting the systems up to do that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that throughout this conversation today about data alignment, aligning that data, making sure that you're set up from it from the beginning, and then how you can use AI to enable that even more once you have that set up.
Absolutely. I mean, it is going to come out later in the session, but it's just so critical, right? That data first, that end-to-end view. But Paul, a few words and to build on.
Yeah, I think AJ and Ross, you hit on all of the key things, right? That lean towards the volumes are going north. The complexity of the way that we will sell and bill is increasing. Subscription becomes consumption becomes who knows what over the next couple of years. We have the tools to manage that today. So if we figure how do you make smarter decisions and drive operational resilience, two of your key points there, AJ and Ross, you mentioned, the velocity of this change. How do you manage the exceptions? For me, we've got a plan for super adaptable and faster moving revenue cycles. We've got to look at the trends. You got to look at things like DSO. It's not a number that should come back from your finance team at the end of the month, or heaven forbid, end of quarter. This has got to be real time. What's the impact? Is our DSO increasing or shrinking? Are the resolution times for queries accelerating? And how do we get that quote to invoice cycle speed up while having a smarter view of what the data is telling us? Is it telling us the margin is increasing or decreasing? All of those things are possible today. So I think you've got to start to look at those old metrics, but in real time. And we can do that today with workflows and with AI as well. So looking forward to getting into that.
And I think that becomes like the almost the lead into the next question in many respects, Paul, which is that we talk about it from almost getting it right at the point of sale. We talk about it at the data injection into the billing process. We talk about all that hierarchy of all that information aligning smoothly. The question a customer will often ask at this point is, when I think about automating my end-to-end process, where do I start? Um, Ross, how do you go about that at GoTransverse?
I mean, it really starts with data alignment, unifying your sources, then process alignment, right? Mapping that quote to cash workflow, having the right API design to make sure that there's no brittle points in how the point-to-point interactions work, then having the real-time flow and stream of your events. Um, we're not in a world of batching data now. We're in a world of real-time information. Paul was just hitting on that. It's really about having that with also strong governance around it It's that flow that we need. So it starts at the base with aligning your data, your process, your API flow, and then understanding that it's a real-time set of information.
Got it. And I think Paul, this leads on lovely for you to kind of build onto that in terms of that how you automate the workflow and where you give the advice to a customer of where they might prioritize first.
So I think if I look at how do we harden the revenue process, but get it ready to accelerate as well? Ross is hitting on all of the points there that you've got to take care of. But the three things for me are the order, also the quote to the order handoff, right? So automate that. That's where everything starts to fall about. You're not looking at the contract. You're not pulling in data sets that actually give you a rich but correct invoice that is validated against things like product entitlements. So that quote to order handoff, I think, is one of the first things to automate. The next bit is the validation of that and the enrichment. So how do you then package that order and make sure that it's all correct, it's tying to the right data points? If it isn't, that you're flagging in the process, we've got an incorrect set of data here, which tells me I'm likely to have a bounced invoice, which tells me my DSO is going to go up again. These things highlight, as you automate them, you can start to see where the process degrades, and you can start to put signals out and flags out that solve you resolving something later. And then the last bit really sums those up. It's that revenue recognition trigger, right? What is it in the process that's telling us this is unlikely to be paid or it's likely to be challenged? And how do we figure out how to put that into the right channel? Again, ServiceNow does a great job of exception handling and validations handling as well. So we can start to automate those. Those are really the three areas I'd look at.
Yeah, I think that's actually really good. And it's critical that the systems, as they're talking to each other, and this is something that we've worked really hard on, is making sure that our systems talk really well between ServiceNow and Gotransverse and between the ERPs as well, right? So you talk about the revenue recognition, but making sure that you have the traceability from end to end, from the time that the event happens, the service gets created, the quote in the case that we were just talking about, all the way through to the end of that accounting entry, that GL record, right? That full traceability is so important all the way through. And having good connectors, and that's where I get back to the APIs that I was just talking about and what it flows through is so important. All of this, and it's happening so fast now. And AI is enabling it even more to happen even faster. And we're pulling all these pieces together. And that's also where I just want to pull back in that the governance also is so important right now. So as we pull all of those elements together. So
Thank you, Ross. And AJ, I'm going to put the question to yourself first, and I'm just almost thinking a little bit as a personal veteran of the kind of TMT sector. ServiceNow plays just perfectly into this industry, all industries, but this industry specific, right? What is it that the platform now does to pick up those signals, to pick up that validation of that exceptions, to kind of help the customer mitigate and manage these kind of potential risks?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I concur with everything that Ross and Paul just said. So the way ServiceNow looks at specifically the telecom, media, and technology sector is pretty unique because we have an end-to-end view of lead to cash in which a lead becomes an opportunity, becomes a quote, becomes a sales order, then gets split into multiple domain orders. Each one gets fulfilled. It connects to field service, into project management, and then into what we call product inventory and telecom. From that point onwards, it can link to network inventory, which we also manage. But you can also do all kinds of amendments and MACDs on top of the product inventory. And then we of course integrate the billing systems like Gotransverse, with whom we have built a native connector. So the thing with ServiceNow is all of this is on the same platform, end to end, one data model, one architecture, and this gives you a lot of visibility to signals in terms of things that could be going off base. What if your if X, Y, and Z is on the order, but what you're billing is inconsistent with that? What if not collected the first payment for a key order and you've started producing uh, without cognizance of what's happening on the collection side? That's a real use case from one of our largest manufacturing customers. But if it's all on the same platform, you have full understanding of what is happening. And to us, that's a big deal because, especially in telecom, as you know, Gareth, it's very fragmented. BSS services has tens of systems all over the place, just in lead to cash or quote to cash. And getting these systems in sync, getting product account, contracts, transactional data working together seamlessly has always been a big challenge, right? But as we go towards this real-time integrated approach in which you have workflows connecting the customer end to end with all the processes in your company, as you become a real-time enterprise, as you move with high velocity and agility, you do need a platform like ServiceNow that acts as a glue end to end, all the way from your customer to your internal systems and to your partner systems, right? And we feel very comfortable about what we've been able to accomplish in the space. We have close to 450 customers in telecom. And then working with Gotransverse, we now have this vision of an end-to-end lead to cash uh, workflow that can automate using the power of ServiceNow AI, but also with full cognizance of all the data across all these systems.
And I think, Ross and Paul, I'm going to merge a couple of questions because that's the one benefit I get of being the host, changing it up a little bit more. So to go with me a little bit there, we'll start with Ross and then on to Paul. I think what I remember, right, from kind of days of running billing teams was that if the first bill was right, and like in the high 90s, the likelihood of it going wrong there afterwards was so low, on the kind of repeating, recurring instances. So with that in mind, what do you say to a customer when when you're deploying the kind of platforms to mitigate that kind of those issues? What practical activities can they take place to stop either those data problems or to help them get that success first time? So Ross, then Paul.
Yeah, yeah. No, great way to lead into it and great way for talking about it, right? There's a lot of predictive prevention, right, to this. So, there's continuously identifying any of the gaps of the data that can come in and how this is all going to flow through. Whenever we go into billing implementations and we're working with customers and telecommunications especially, but any of them, when we start from the end point that we need to get to, we start actually from looking at it from the accounting side. Really, what's the end result of the accounting we need to get to? And then work our way back up to the billing records of where we need to get to. And so it flows, actually, honestly, starts in the reverse. And we really look at the data from where it needs to end up at, and then how we get there. And then from the other side, start looking at it from a contractual level and what needs to happen with the contracts. And when you map both ends of the process and start putting it together, then you start getting to all of the billing points that need to happen. And what we've done is been able to then pull all of what happens in the CRM and in the ordering world and in the contractual side of it with what needs to then happen to the output. And right now, there's so much information going on both sides and so much change that can go on, and companies can choose what's going to be input and output. What we've learned over the time and continuously is how to get that accurately flowing through the systems, how to structure it, how to handle the different types of contracts, how to make that flow through, how to build the right billing models. Sorry, I could keep going for a long time because I love this stuff. But with the integration of these systems, right, unifying that data, continually pulling it through the billing, through the finance, through the analytic layers of this, the important part is being able to govern that information, pull it through, make sure that it matches, and make sure you have that traceability of the information all the way through. And I'll keep going back to that. It's about being able to trace the records all the way through making sure that you can match the models in front of you. Yeah, I'll hand that back to Paul to comment from there.
I'm laughing because, Ross, you tend to nerd out on this stuff, but for good reason, right? There's so much we can do with this. I mean, you nailed it, Gareth, right? If you get the setup on a big customer correct in the beginning, it makes it easier. But the risk is then the customer changes, right? So understanding the customer's downstream of the way it's organized, its subsidiaries, you guys are talking about telco. The reason I like the fact that ServiceNow has got such a heritage in telco, I think, AJ, you mentioned 400 plus customers. The complexity involved in that is hard to fathom anywhere else. Everything else is at worst as complex as telco, and usually slightly better than telco or a lot better than telco. So if we take that learning and the way the ServiceNow platform was built, you can manage corporations, the entities and all the structure, services, software services, people services, but the assets as well. That asset data is a hidden gem in ServiceNow. So you take all of that, the setup end to end is there. If you can get that right at the beginning, that's guardrail number one. But the second part of it is, especially with AI, we can start to set up those revenue guardrails, right? What does the contract mean? As the contract adapts over time, what does it mean to the rest of the setup? And we can start to use the platform to actually look at, test the data as it comes in, determine, is it good? Do I have a full set of data? Is this an accurate bill? Is it okay? We haven't tested this data in a while. Should there be a review? Should I push this back to a human to take a look at something? Or is it bad? It's unknown. I have no idea if this data is good, so I know that there's risk on this one. So we can start to automate some of that test, and it's like a software development life cycle. We know whether that invoice is probably good, definitely good, that's rare, or probably got some issues, and we can automate the testing and then pass it back to people. So that validation is key, and AI just allows us to do that at scale. So that's a long way of saying I agree with Ross here. We've not only got to a point where we understand how to determine a better revenue predictability and likelihood of an issue, but we can now test that in real time. And we can use agents to do a lot of that, digital agents to do a lot of that, and just make it easier for people to dig in where we know there'll be issues.
It's that closed loop assurance. It's that quality and that recovery of all that lost revenue that could happen, because now we can identify it and actually recover it. So
Ross, you're spot on. We've built a lot of our business about helping people go and figure out where they're bleeding revenue, where they're dropping revenue points, or where they're losing cash flow cycles. We've re-geared our business over the last couple of years with ServiceNow to try to help predict that. So our job shouldn't be to go find it and come back with a hero's cape on saying, hey, we found $10 million worth of lost revenue. Don't get me wrong, I love doing that. But it's now about how do we actually stop you leaking that? We know it's there, we just don't know how big it is, but how do we stop you leaking that? And that's something that we can do today that you couldn't do as easily in the past, if at all.
Right. And then on the ServiceNow side, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go on, Ross, keep going.
Yeah, no, I was
Give us
going to say
that
on the
passion.
ServiceNow side, it's contract to cash synchronization, right? I mean, it's all the sales order management, the cases, the assets that all come through, and then it's flowing through into the billing platform. And all this is pulling it together in a way that we haven't had before. And it's golden time right now for all of us, right? We have all this proactive detection of the discrepancies. We're able to pull this together and see it right now with a full audit trail from quote to cash to service, the whole thing. It's just great. I don't even know what else to say besides that we can identify it all up front.
I don't think I think we're going to keep saying more about it actually. So don't worry about that. And I think I'll almost pause in my own mind, right, and kind of reflect on some of the items that are being shared. Because if I think about some of the customer projects that actually in this instance a number of us have worked on together at different times this year, I'm consistently seeing like 1 to 2% of revenue that is being captured in year that was being missed. right? And actually, that often leads to incremental revenue from whatever reason, but also actually incremental margin from a kind of cost of sale or a kind of a risk perspective there. And like there is not an organization anywhere out there that wouldn't appreciate 1 to 2% revenue growth in you. And actually, I can think of an example at the start of the year. We went back with an organization and did that historical backtracking 5 years, and they got an extra 20% of revenue in year. So, like, this is meaningful numbers to organizations, not just that we love geeking out on having great data and fabulous processes that are automated with AI guardrails. And I think we're moving into the kind of AI guardrail, the AI driven piece. So I'm going to start with AJ and then yourself, Ross. So, how can you deploy AI in 2025 to help this process, your organizations to be more successful?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a great question, Ross. Telecom, especially is an industry where revenue leakage has always been an issue, right? I think telecom is what, about a $1.5–2 trillion industry. And if you say 2% of that business is revenue is lost, I mean, you're talking about, 20 to 40 billion dollars lost on a yearly basis, right? And if you look at individual companies, I mean, those numbers are massive and make a meaningful difference to the bottom line. So to me, revenue assurance has always been a data and AI business, but we didn't have the tools until now to actually have full understanding of the data. There's a famous Donald Rumsfeld quote, which I always keep going back to, where he said, you have the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns. It's a kind of a cliche, but it is actually so true, because the way we have done revenue assurance in the past is using business rules to determine discrepancies, right? What was ordered, what was billed, did we have underbilling, did we apply the volume discounting correctly, and so on. But now AI can detect those patterns. It can detect what was missed. It can detect if you had an aberration in the way you did renewals, the way you did calculations, the way you applied the uplift. And then you have applications of AI in all parts of the life cycle, right? When you do quoting, can you arm the sales rep with the right discounts, with the right upsell offers, with a full understanding of what else the customer has? Can you help reduce order fallout by proactively fixing the order before it is submitted? When you do contract analysis, can you use AI to understand the terms in the contract, the clauses that are being used, and proactively tell legal and sales and finance what the terms should be so that they are protecting themselves? And what about, pricing analysis uh, at the scale of a region, at the scale of a particular BU, at the scale of a particular large customer? There's just so many opportunities with AI to optimize revenue, to run the business better, that we have barely scratched the surface. I think honestly, the world is the oyster for companies in the space. They can do so much more in the next few years.
Yeah. And Paul and then Ross, I'll come into this. One of the kind of topics that you'll hear from a customer is, okay, so you've helped me understand the importance. You've helped me understand where I start in my workflow journey. Where do I start in my AI journey? That's almost that next question. Or what conversations are you having with customers on that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a conversation every day, right? I don't think I've had one customer conversation in the last few months that hasn't, either started with or immediately been followed up with what impact does AI have? So I think there's a few areas that you look at, right? AI for us is not co-pilots, right? I'm not in the business of building people's co-pilots. I don't think that that's driving the effect that people want. What I'm really looking for are the discrete parts of the business model that we can address with AI quickly, and then how they connect to shine signal intelligence across the rest of the business. So for me, it's contract intelligence firstly. AJ's talked about it. That's that setup point you mentioned as well, Gareth, right? If you get it right to start with, everything else sort of tears off it. So contracts have been a nightmare for a long time. Amendments, swaps, consolidations, M&A, it all is changing rapidly and it drives everything. So how do you get that sales team and the legal team and then ultimately the RevOps teams aligned? And AI can start to pull that together quickly, and you don't need a complete and absolute data set. You can infer whether something's good quality, bad quality, or unknown. To AJ's point, right? The things you know, the things you don't know, and the things you don't know are all critical. So we're using AI today to analyze contract terms, right? What is this customer trying to achieve? That can tell you a lot about their goals and motivations as you go through your service contract with them. Some customers buy on price and everything's determined around it. Others gear up their contracts to buy on SLAs. They want to be able to hold you accountable for what you're promising. And you can analyze the contract terms and then arm your sellers to actually drive deals in an appropriate way that hit your goals, but also are aligned with what your customer's looking for. And you can see the conflicts as well on an order form to a master agreement or an SLA. So number one is that contract intelligence. And AI can take you from hours and hours, maybe days of trying to align something and then codify it into a system when you know it's going to change, down to a few minutes, guide the appropriate people, whether it's a salesperson or someone in the RevOps team, and adapt as that contract lifecycle with your customer changes. The next thing for me is probably the resolution of disputes. How do we use AI to quickly see why is there a conflict here? What is it that we've missed? What is it that customers assumed, or what data set has given us a dispute? And if we get ahead of that, you can start to do autonomous predictive resolution. So that's where you start to test your invoices before you actually send them, right? Is this likely to be a good invoice? Am I likely to have an issue? Do other customers with this product set have the same sort of issues, and what does it tell me? And the last bit is AI for dynamic pricing, as AJ's mentioned. And that's not just looking at matching up the right terms and conditions, it's market conditions as well. What's happening in the market, right? AI can now tell you the customer you're shipping to has got immense pricing pressure at the moment. They're going to scrutinize everything. Or they've got a massive market opportunity at the moment. They're going to look for speed of execution and flexibility more than anything. That pricing model might change, and we've got the ability to look at massive pricing sets. What is a similar customer doing and looking for today? What is the region doing and looking today? What is that BU trying to drive? Revenue growth, margin protection? All of those things might affect how you price something. But those are three things off the top, and there's probably another 20 right behind that.
And for me, Paul, one of the things that makes me think about is that you can almost inbuild with AI and generative AI benchmarking for almost every order or case or opportunity, which I think is just game changing, right? In terms of allowing customers to succeed in what can be headwind markets. So we're coming towards the end of today's webinar, but we've still got a couple of questions left. I'm going to go AJ and then Ross. This is on kind of the partner ecosystem. So as your kind of digital ecosystem expands, that sharing of third-party data, working together, as we can see today, 3 organizations coming together and thinking about customer success. How can you close that loop or drive revenue? AJ, you start.
Yeah, that's a good question, Gareth. So one thing I would say is we have started to look at in ServiceNow as the biggest untapped opportunities or sitting at the seams, where systems meet. So I would think of it in terms of 3 vectors. One is CPQ order management billing, and this thought process was what led us to work with partners like Gotransverse, because often between CPQ order management and billing, the revenue data often diverges. And by automating product account entitlement and usage data across these systems, we ensure that companies can uncover missed renewals. So that's a key value chain to focus on. The second one that's increasingly coming into play is partner relationship management and billing. I think if you go to companies like Pure Storage or Palo Alto Networks, a significant chunk of the business is via resellers and channel partners. And these channel and reseller transactions can often be using spreadsheets, they are using legacy systems, And when you integrate the partner portals and partner relationship management systems with billing, it really ensures margin accuracy, and you can do real-time revenue share reconciliation. Some of these companies have multi-tier reseller models as well. The third thing I want to say, which is going to become an increasingly huge part of this ecosystem, is e-commerce order management and billing. E-commerce has traditionally been thought of as B2C, which is Shopify, WooCommerce, Commerce Tools kind of a thing. But increasingly, a lot of business buyers want to go direct. And as a Gartner analysis that says 70% of user research in B2B is done before they even talk to the salesperson. And you're going to see e-commerce becoming a bigger part of B2B. And so each cart and promotion and each action you take on the website, they need to link to fulfillment and invoicing. And you have these retailers and SaaS marketplaces, they need to be a part of the equation as well. So, this opportunity of the partner ecosystem is not just about collaboration and building connectors, it is really getting to that end-to-end view and having a shared intelligence. And so when we do that, and there's a common revenue fabric tying all the partners together, it becomes a proactive revenue assurance vision and not the reactive one that companies have been pursuing the last couple of decades.
Perfect. Thank you, AJ. Ross?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, AJ hit the majority of it, right? It's revenue integrity, it's contract to cash, it's the AI-driven revenue assurance that we've been talking about. It's the broader ecosystem and how it's expanding. At the end of all of this, like what we've put together is a way with ServiceNow handling this really sales order management case incident asset with billing, with the intelligence that we get from the whole group flowing all the way through with a billing engine all the way down to the ERP. And when you put that whole thing together with the contract lifecycle management that Paul was just talking about in the last little bit that we were going through, all of this comes, we're talking about partner ecosystem. So all of these partners together create a complete solution, right? And that's what a lot of the struggle has been in the past is you have these fragmented solutions. And when you don't have all the information, you're doing all these things in different silos, you end up missing out on the full opportunity or having disconnected information and not getting to that end solution that will give you an ultimate result that is what you're looking for, and you miss out. And here we put together all those pieces.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, Russ. You just mentioned the word that, I like because I hate them so much, the siloed part. If you lift this up a layer, I'll give you an example. There's a customer of ours, they're in the logistics business, and a big part of their growth play is to be able to offer the surrounding services. And this goes to AJ talking about channel partners. The number of companies that today are trying to embed other offerings that are often of a very different construct to their own, they've got to figure out how to handle that data, how to cross-bill and cross-sell and upsell in flight. And you cannot do that unless you start to tie together the platforms, the data, and build workflows that are really adaptable. And I think that's a fusion of great platform, great back-end systems that are super, super built for integration, and pulling those together and then putting an AI layer on it to understand it and orchestrate it at strength. And that's the main reason we spend a lot of time with AJ talking about who else should we integrate to, and then pulling in partners like Gotransverse with that integration layer. This is about arming our customers with the flexibility to adapt their business models at speed. And I think that's really the bottom line of this. If we don't do that and they can't adapt at speed, they're at a massive competitive disadvantage. The way we sell products is changing, the way we have to build them is changing, and the customer's expectation is just going north. They're expecting everything to be fluid. If I buy my cell phone, I should be able to get everything else just off of that one contract. It should be easy. So
And look, I'm gonna say it for you guys as a collective, because I think you're all being super humble, given the development. Here's a great example of the three organizations that have built an integrated product that's available on the store, that allows customers to see it, how it works, and or off the shelf. And that's what kind of makes this even more powerful. In fact, I think we'll actually tag the video demo that we had created for that at the end of this video, or separate as a result at the back. But that example of where ServiceNow, Gotransverse, and the whole group built that product that allows customers just to even speed up that, to your point, Paul, the benefit, that time to market. So it's time for the final question. It's kind of, what advice are you going to offer executives? They're kind of your final thought, your one takeaway, and we'll do it in the order we started with: AJ, Ross, and then Paul.
Yeah, yeah, this has been a fascinating conversation. So the one thing I would say is lead to cash, at least the way we think about it, and revenue assurance, which is a topic of this session. It's not a back office compliance audit function. It is about growth and customer experience and all that you need to do to get that right. So when a customer gets an accurate invoice as a frictionless renewal, his dispute gets auto resolved, that's revenue assurance shaping experience. It's not just accounting, right? And when we get this right, customers feel it, and you can feel it
Mm.
viscerally, right? Proposals are compelling, quotes are fast, provisioning happens, immediately, bills are accurate, disputes are fewer, the tickets get closed, and all that leads to more trust. And trust is the biggest currency in this business, right? And more trust just means that it leads to growth, it leads to less churn, it leads to more renewals, a lower DSO that Paul talked about, lower bad debt, and things just happen faster. Your organization is happier because customers are happier. And that's what we're trying to do. All these tools we're talking about are essentially a means to that end. So I think that is the biggest change I'm seeing, is that revenue assurance as a discipline is about growth and driving customer experience.
I'm going to add on to it, right? Revenue assurance isn't just a back office control anymore. It's a strategic growth lever, right? Every dollar recovered at that margin level is an immediate connection to your overall growth. It's a lever right in front of you, right? And so the one takeaway is first visibility into it, then automation, and then continuous assurance of it. It's talking about the data being at the basis of it, the traceability, and the visibility. So that flow through is so important. So visibility first, automation second, and then continuous assurance of that.
I couldn't agree more with you guys. I'd sum it this way: revenue assurance, from how do you quickly convert new revenue, new customers? How do you make that easier and less painful? How do you maximize the growth of the revenue you've got under management? And how do you make sure that you're collecting your cash, you're maximizing the profits, and that you're actually driving the cash flow? How do you build a brand that's easier to work with, that allows you the right to cross-sell and upsell services? And whether that's new products you're introducing at speed, or whether it's partnerships with channels where you want to add more value to your customer. All of those things are critical. And I'd summarize it this way: that revenue assurance is no longer a defensive play, and it's certainly not an administrative or a back office task. It's a pure out and out competitive advantage. And I'd go one thing further: the customers that don't tackle it fast enough will hit their Kodak moment faster than anyone has ever had it before. Your competitors are coming for you, and they're using these tactics to win. So I think that the last thing I would summarize on advice is, pick one part of that revenue flow and start there and improve it, and give yourself no more than 90 days, no more than a quarter, and get somebody to show you how you can improve it, and then start to go front to back on that revenue and keep driving that. It's the lifeblood of a company.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'll add just one more kind of tactical thing, right? So we're talking about AI, right? And AI to detect anomalies, find things earlier, or automate, right? So we want to find it early, whether that's revealing in your pricing, your discounting, your entitlements. Pick a spot to find and tackle. I think Paul just said it, but be very specific about what you're going after, right? AI is an enablement tool right now. It doesn't solve everything, but you can use it as a tool right in front of you right now, and it can solve a lot very quickly. So really go after it and use it right in front of you. I think we're all saying the same thing, and we're probably getting repetitive.
It's ironic, Ross, right? It used to be, hey, here's your 3-year program, and we're going to change this, and everything's going to be rosy. And a lot of the big ERP companies drove those programs for years, and many of them still drive them today. We have the ability with the platforms today to go super surgical and say, let's look for where the biggest loss is, and let's fix that today, and let's use agents. So, we look at it as, we call it revenue under management. That's from sale all the way through to optimizing, to getting the right to sell more. Pick a starting point and go quickly. And the tools that you've got today with ServiceNow, with Gotransverse, and with the ability to build agents at speed, you can find a way to drive some meaningful revenue. And to your point earlier, Gareth, I've not met a customer yet that doesn't want a little more revenue, a lot more profit, and a faster return on their cash cycles. So it's a great time to be in this space, and you don't have to solve everything, but pick something.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, go for it, AJ.
I was just going to say one last thing to add to what Paul and Russ. And by the way, we all coordinated, but we never talked about it. So that's fascinating to see. We all saying the same thing. The one thing I want to say is, if you happen to be a large telco tech company, anyone who has complex quote to cash, work backwards from the customer and the business as to what are you trying to do, what revenue are you trying to protect, what leakage are you trying to proactively predict, what experience are you going to intentionally provide, and then work backwards to the systems and technology. I mean, it is kind of weird that we are saying this in 2025, but still, a lot of these projects are IT-led, inward-looking, and are not putting the customer at the heart of what they're trying to do. That is the most important thing, because if you solve for the customer and then also for your business, almost all the other things take care of themselves.
What a fabulous place to end our conversation today. Customer first. To Paul, Ross, and AJ, thank you so much for your time. I have the very honourable task of attempting to summarize the last 45 minutes conversation that was wide, varied, deep. As we promised at the start, it was going to be full of practical information. It was going to be full of accelerators, opportunities that will allow your business to kind of grow and succeed. And I think I'm going to try and take something from everybody, because there was so much, opportunity and advice there. I think from Ross, what I heard earlier on, it just kind of builds it on towards the end from AJ, that future back, thinking about the data sets that you want to collect that allows you to, in this topic of revenue assurance, bill a customer correctly, which allows you to then drive change and evolution and contract management with the customer. So future back on data. AJ, I love the kind of the word you said earlier on, which said that there's value at the seams when you were thinking kind of about how you drive that partner interaction, integration, and kind of really bringing to life opportunity for clients. Paul, bringing AI to life, the guardrails, signal intelligence. I am using that word every day from now on. Signal intelligence, lovely. Utilizing it to help you find those exceptions, to manage the opportunity, whatever the kind of use case that may be. And I think for my takeaway is going to be this session has proven partners working together with a common outcome of driving it to be customer first makes a big difference. Thank you very much.
Gareth, thanks for emceeing. I met you a long time ago on some really complex programs. Virgin, I think it was. This was terrific. Thanks for pulling us all together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you guys.